He never talks about it at the dinner table. Doesn't come up when the neighbors mention the good old days, or when his granddaughter asks about the medals in the wooden box. But sometimes, when the dishwasher hums just right, or when a basketball hits pavement too sharply outside the school near his house, he pauses. His shoulders tighten, because that sound, it's too close to the one he can't forget. Tom Ellery is 78 years old now. Soft-spoken, walks with a cane that clicks on the porch like a nervous metronome. But once, in a mud-choked trench, with rain slicking his face and hands trembling over a radio dial, he was Private Ellery, 17 years old and terrified. I met Tom in a diner off Route 11, 2 booths from the window, early morning coffee crowd buzzing all around us. He ordered his eggs over hard and didn't touch them. "I haven't told anyone this," he said, voice steady. "Not my wife, not the VA, but there's something that's been sitting on my chest since 44. He stirred his coffee, took a breath. "I still hear it, that boy's helmet. When it hit the ground, it rang like a church bell, only wrong." From there, the story unwound like a reel of old film, grainy, vivid, undeniable. A story not about battles, or flags, or victory, but about one moment, one decision, and a boy named Ryan Porter, whose face has followed Tom through 7 decades of silence. His name was Ryan Porter, 17, maybe 18, with a cowlick that never stayed down, and a nervous habit of rubbing his knuckles against his pants when he talked. He was the kind of kid who still said yes sir to everyone, even the mail clerk, and laughed too loud at jokes that weren't funny. They called him Boots because they were too clean, because he was too new. Tom met him 3 days before the shelling. Ryan had been assigned as an ammo runner, but half the time he'd show up at Tom's foxhole just to talk. He'd lean over the edge, legs dangling like he was on a schoolyard bench, and ask about baseball, about girls, about whether it was true that you could smell snow before it fell. Tom, even then, wasn't the talking kind. He had a job, listening for call signs, sending coordinates, keeping the radio alive no matter what. But something about the kid chipped away at the edges. Maybe it was the way Ryan always brought an extra tin of beans and never expected a thank you. Maybe it was the way he always said, "See you tomorrow," like that was a promise. The last morning Tom saw him alive, Ryan was humming under his breath, lacing up his boots. The fog was thick, and the sky was the color of tin. "You know, Ellery," he said, smiling that sideways smile, "you remind me of my uncle. Real quiet guy, thoughtful. We called him Old Man, too." Tom snorted. "I'm 19, he muttered. Ryan grinned. "Exactly." And then he was gone, off into the trees, with a crate of shells and a whistle in his step. Tom never told him how much he liked hearing that whistle, never told him anything at all. The warning was short, just a burst of static on the radio, and then silence. Tom had just finished his rations, a dented tin of potatoes, and a bite of chocolate someone's mother had mailed 6 weeks late. He wiped his hands on his jacket, reached for the transmitter, and then the world tore open. The first shell hit maybe 50 yards out. Dirt and shrapnel clawed at the trench like a hungry animal. Tom hit the ground. The radio hissed. He covered it with his body like it was a child. Another blast, closer. Something hot sliced past his ear. Then the screaming started. Not all at once. Just one voice at first, then another, then none. And through all of it, somewhere between the explosions and the splatter of rain, Tom heard it. A single metallic clang. Not the crash of artillery, not the snap of a rifle, but the clean, unmistakable sound of a helmet hitting concrete, spinning and settling into stillness. He crawled. He doesn't remember how far. Just that he passed someone's boot, someone's hand, and then he saw it. Ryan, crumpled in the clearing just beyond the trench, one hand outstretched. His helmet had flown off and rolled toward a piece of broken timber, where it now lay upside down like a bowl. Ryan was still moving, barely. His fingers twitched in the mud. Tom froze. He swears it wasn't fear, not the usual kind. It was something colder, deeper. Not fight or flight, but wait. Like his blood forgot how to move, like the ground had swallowed the command to run. He told himself someone else would get there first. No one did. Later, in the medical tent, the nurse kept telling him he was lucky, that the shrapnel had missed anything vital, that he'd kept the radio dry, that his hearing would probably come back. She didn't ask why he wouldn't meet her eyes. Tom said nothing, just nodded, pretended he was still dizzy from the blast. But what really stunned him wasn't the concussion. It was the look on Ryan's face, burned into his memory like a negative on film. Not terror, not pain, just confusion. Like he couldn't quite believe no one was coming. Like he still thought Tom might show up, like he always did, with an extra spoon or a grumbled joke about rations. Like that promise, "See you tomorrow," still meant something. Tom lay there in the cot for 2 more days. No one asked about Ryan. No one mentioned the helmet. And then the war rolled on. He was reassigned, shipped to another post, then another. He learned to fix radios with one hand and write letters home with the other. Learned how to fold silence into sentences that said nothing. Learned how to laugh again, but only with his teeth. But even now, 70 years later, in a recliner that creaks when he shifts his weight, Tom still hears it. That sound, that ringing, that impossible purity, like a church bell struck by accident. The kind that makes birds scatter and children fall quiet. The kind that doesn't fade. It's not just memory, it's presence. The moment didn't end. It never stopped happening. And so he keeps it, close, carried not in his pocket or in a box, but somewhere behind his ribs, where no one can touch it, where it rings and rings and rings. After the war, Tom did what many men did. He came home, got a job, learned how to nod at questions without really answering them. He married a woman named Eileen who could always tell when he was lying, and who chose, most days, not to press. They had a son, bought a house with a porch swing, grew tomatoes, paid bills. Time passed. He never spoke of Ryan Porter. In the attic, there's a box labeled Tom Military, but no one ever opens it. Inside, a folded flag, rusting dog tags, a photo of a smiling boy with a crooked cowlick, the kind of face you'd see on a milk carton and immediately believe he'd find his way home. Sometimes, when Tom couldn't sleep, he'd sit in the garage under a single bare bulb and run his fingers over Ryan's helmet. Not because he needed to remember, because he needed to confirm it was real, that the sound he carried wasn't invented, that the weight of that morning didn't dissolve with the years. Once, just once, he came close to telling someone. His grandson Max had asked him during a school project about the scariest day of your life. Tom said something vague about a radio malfunction. Max kept pressing. "Was there someone you couldn't save?" the boy asked, eyes full of innocence. Tom opened his mouth, closed it, then quietly walked over to a shelf, picked up an old pair of binoculars, and handed them to Max. "Keep those," he said. "They remind you to look closer. Always." Max didn't understand, but he will. The VA says his hearing loss is typical for his age. Normal wear and tear, exposure to artillery. Tom nods politely during checkups. He lets them shine lights in his ears, test frequencies, adjust his prescriptions. But none of it touches the sound he actually hears. Because it's not a buzz, not a hum. It's that helmet, still spinning, still ringing. Sometimes it comes back strongest at night, between dreams and waking. Sometimes it's in the hiss of the kettle or the way the wind whistles through the screen door in early autumn. Not constant, not loud, just precise. A high, clear tone that sharpens in the quiet. When he dreams of Ryan, the boy is always standing in the same clearing, still 17, still holding out his hand, like maybe this time Tom will take it. Maybe this time Tom will get up, run across the mud, and do what he didn't. He wakes up before he finds out. Eileen passed away last spring. His son lives 3 states away. Max visits sometimes, always asking questions about things he's not quite old enough to understand. Tom listens more than he speaks. But one day, not long ago, he asked Max if he knew how to write letters. "Sure," Max said. "Like in a notebook?" Tom nodded. "Or to someone you miss." They didn't say anything else. But a week later, Max brought a small envelope sealed with tape and left it on the shelf beneath the helmet. He didn't ask who it was for. Tom hasn't opened it. He just sits beside it sometimes, hand resting on the old metal curve, head bowed, not in prayer, but in memory. And if you listen closely, in that stillness, you might hear it too. That boy's helmet, still ringing, still waiting.